Hello everyone, welcome to Wonderland here in San Diego. Thanks for joining us for our, I think, first remote counterattack. So thanks for being here. Everyone showing up. Greg Meskel here with you, and to our audience that'll be watching on Overnght and YouTube, thanks for tuning in as well. We have a great lineup for you here today. Sitting right next to me already, one of San Diego's own, Alex Bowen. We'll talk with him momentarily. We've got the head coach of the USA Women's National Team, Adam Krikorian, here as well, and then two-time Olympic gold medalist Kaleigh Gilchrist also stopping by. So going to be a great day here, and behind the camera you can't see it, but the views of the Pacific, pretty fantastic. Alex, let's start with you. San Diego, your hometown, amazing water polo community. What sort of pride do you have in being a San Diego guy that grew up here playing water polo?
Oh, a tremendous amount of pride for San Diego water polo. We've always had at least one guy from San Diego on the team, and I've loved being a part of that tradition. From Jesse Smith and Lane Bowen all the way down, like we've had a lot of really good water polo players come out of San Diego, and I'm glad to be a part of them.
Your dad, a water polo coach, you played for some of the top clubs, San Diego Shores. How did that experience, before you got to Stanford for your college water polo, how did the club experience, the high school experience here kind of lay the foundation for what you did later?
Oh yeah, well my dad, oh, he's finished 30 years coaching. He's still coaching, but he's doing a great job with San Diego Shores 16s, with Santana High School, and I mean he was the guy who put me in the water when I was 7 years old, and he's always been my coach. He's just let some other coaches take the reins, you know. But yeah, I was a part of Sultan beforehand, which was kind of the feeder club for my high school, and then joined Shores in high school and did really well with them. Doug Peabody and Dan Way were great coaches for me there, and my dad was able to like little hands off at that point, like let me experience having different coaches, but always had to go back and play for him for high school. So yeah, tremendous amount of pride in San Diego Shores and in San Diego water polo in general, and the coaches that I had here definitely shaped me into the person I am.
Alex, part of the Team USA men at 3 Olympic Games, 2016 in Rio, 2020 abbreviated, of course, Tokyo, 2021, and then the breakthrough in Paris, bronze medal, first time back on the podium for Team USA since 2008. I'm sure you don't ever get tired of talking about this, but to get the squad back on the podium, to win that bronze, when you think back on that experience, what comes to mind?
Oh man, I mean, the journey in Paris was incredible. I mean, I think I've talked about it ad nauseum with anybody who will listen to me. But the journey really started when we hosted World Cup at USC 2023, and we medaled there, super hard road, and kind of proved to ourselves that hey, we're in this. Like we are competitive, and we deserve to be on the podium. And we had our setbacks in World Championships, but we were able to keep the confidence going into it and take advantage of the opportunities.
And we're talking here on this NCAA championship weekend tonight at UC San Diego. It'll be the final on the women's side, Cal taking on USC. We'll talk more about that as the day goes on. Talking with Alex Bowen here, Stanford guy. Before bronze, before World Championships, you played at Stanford. How did the farm kind of set the table for what you then aspired to do internationally?
Oh yeah, it was farm to table for sure. Stanford really molded me into a young man. The players that I played with there, the professors that I had, the coaches that I had, all were top notch, top level, and Stanford continues to do that to this day. Have loved the relationship I have with them. Was able to finally, being back home I was able to go to my 10-year reunion and up at Stanford this fall, and it was absolutely amazing getting to reconnect with everybody, water polo wise, and just friends that I haven't seen in so long. It was an amazing experience.
One of the amazing things about your career has been the commitment to play overseas. I think some fans might be aware of this, but for those that aren't, really over the last 10 years, especially under Coach Dan Adovicic, it's been a focal point for members of the national team after their college eligibility to go abroad to play in Europe. No one committed to this more than you, I think, over the last 10 or 12 years, just grinding from the minute you finished at Stanford all the way to really last year. What was that experience like as you kind of cut your teeth abroad and found your way climbing higher and higher in those leagues?
Yeah, well, I hope that I was able to kind of put a little bit of road down for the guys that are over there now, because we have so much success over there now. So many guys playing in clubs that wouldn't even talk to me at the beginning of my career that are like, it cannot get enough of having Americans over there, because we are so strong, we are so dedicated, and we are culture builders in any team that we are a part of. But yeah, I played 10 years abroad. I played in 7 different countries. I started in Romania. I went to Hungary for 3 years, and then Hungary to Croatia for a year, and then COVID and that threw everything off. Went to Greece before Tokyo, and it was something like 13 players that were all trying to be on the national team, all in Greece at the same time, which was an amazing, or I think it was 11, but it was amazing opportunity because everybody was in Athens, and it was just an incredible time. And then from Greece going to Serbia to France to Spain, and then here we are. But the amount of water polo that I've learned from every country, because every country has a little bit different view of the sport, and really feel like I've got to see so many different see it through so many lenses.
You know, I'm so glad you mentioned that there's a different style in different countries. We have a couple of age group club athletes here with us today. There's more watching at home, certainly. What's a water polo skill that was critical, that just translated everywhere you went? The coach, the team, they expected you to be good at that thing.
Communication is so vital, and I was at National League this last weekend. I sat down on the bench for the youth team, and the whole time I was telling these guys, like, hey, you get opportunities. I didn't get opportunities like this, and it's a great opportunity for them to be able to play with each other in that capacity against college athletes, and just being able to, like, hey, you're jumping into a team right away. Talk to each other. Make sure that, like, inside the water, outside the water, like, hey, I like to do this. Can you set me up for this? I see you doing that. How can I set you up? And that's something that I was doing every year. Every country that I went to was a different team, and jumping on that team was like, oh, hey, I like the way you do that. How can I help you set that up? Or can you fake that and then pass back to me? Like, I can be ready for that, and kind of being able to dictate the little intricate details within the game with each other, and having that opportunity, because you're always thrown into a different team all the time whenever you're playing abroad. Even you can have 6 guys transfer to a different team, and it's a completely different team the next year. So, and especially with college, like, there's some consistency, but it's also, you got to bring in a new guy, bring in a new threat, help another guy get back to where they can be. But that's one of the big things, is just be a good communicator, so that you're utilizing all the threats and all the weapons that you have on the team.
Now, here in San Diego, you're, as we mentioned, a San Diego guy. I see a Padres hat jersey here in the restaurant. When you'd score a goal, you had your classic Bowen celebration. Could you just demonstrate the chop real quick? So that was the Alex Bowen chop that was taken, right? What's the origin story of that? It comes from the San Diego Padres, right?
Yes, it does. So my dad and I were at a Padre game. I think this was 2019, and I just kind of noticed that, like, water polo celebrations can get pretty bland. Yeah. They're pretty straightforward. It's a fist pump, double fist pump, and it kind of starts. Little point. Like, it kind of starts and ends there.
Yeah.
So I think at the time we had it was like Tatis's first or second year, and he started doing the sugarcane chop. Came from the Dominican, and it was a great run for the Padres, and it's like, what if I start doing that? Like, harken back to my roots and everything. And I started doing that, and everybody's like, "What is this? What are you doing?" I was in Croatia, and like the guys are like, everybody was so confused, but it became so synonymous with me in the water polo world, and then the Padres stopped doing it. So it really became mine from then on. So I leaned in.
Sure. No, I love the idea of you just being in some like Croatian League game doing a Padres shop, and the entire audience is just highly confused about what is going on. But that has become your thing. It's become synonymous with Alex Bowen. Appreciate you taking some time with us here. You'll notice a theme here with some of our guests today. New parents. You are a relatively new dad. I know parenthood is unlike any other journey. Anything from your sports career, from Olympic training, maybe just being in the grind, like anything that translates to being a dad?
You just got to be ready for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're gonna see like middle of going out to eat, and all of a sudden it's a stage 5 blowout, and you gotta solve some problems in the middle of a restaurant. So yeah, you just got to be ready for everything. And the journey's been amazing. My daughter has been just the light of my life right now with my wife. My wife is also the light of my life. But it's incredible. Like she is so funny, and she's starting to get her sense of humor now, and she laughs like no other. It's amazing.
Awesome. Alex Bowen, thanks for the time. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Welcome up the head coach of the U.S. Women's National Team. And the reason why he couldn't answer those trivia questions is he was the head coach back in 2001 of UCLA when they won that national championship. So obviously he knows what happened there, and that'd be cheating. Coach, thanks for being here. Let's start first breaking down what we saw yesterday. You were at the NCAA semifinals, 2 real instant classics. Start first, Cal, Stanford. Stanford, the defending champs. Cal comes with the upset from a seeding perspective. What's your big takeaway from that game?
I think probably a shocker for everyone, myself included. I wasn't necessarily surprised that Cal pulled off the upset, but just the way in which they did. I think up by 4 or 5 at one point. They did a phenomenal job. That's the best Cal team I've seen all year, and to kind of see how much they've progressed since the beginning of the year, to see how they played yesterday was quite impressive. And you could tell that Cal played with, I think, a freedom. Being the 4th seed and being an underdog, you could tell that they kind of relished that role, and obviously a little bit more pressure on Stanford, which is always a difficult place to be in, and to be able to win a game like that, even when you're up 4 or 5, they had lost to that team, I think, 3 times prior. So to be able to have the resolve and the composure in the 4th quarter, to be able to hold on to the lead when you felt like the momentum was swinging was quite a job by Cal. But them getting off to a good start in the beginning of the game and scoring those goals early, I think fed into the momentum. Just a phenomenal effort by the Bears.
Yeah, Cal had never beaten Stanford in an NCAA tourney game until yesterday, and you hit it right on it. Corley Simmons said it before the game. Super important for them. Good first quarter, good third quarter. So they were really focused on getting off to a good start. And then you get the Battle of LA after USC, UCLA, and that was to me like classic Bruins Trojan, just one punch back to another one, and who could have the last word ends up being the Trojans.
Yeah, obviously I grew up with that rivalry, and it's such a special rivalry. So I think anytime those 2 teams play, there's, for me personally, I think there's just an extra excitement, knowing that they kind of bring out the best in one another. That was always something that I really enjoyed about the rivalry. But again, that was a back and forth game. I thought Lauren Steele was phenomenal in the goal. To be able to see USC, though, just with their depth, I think I said this on a broadcast, I think a couple weeks ago. They have some excellent players. Obviously, Emily Osmus was the player of the year in the conference. Phenomenal player, national team, Olympian. But just the depth across the board by USC. I would think Emily probably played only 22, 23 minutes. So they're going with a lot of other players like Maggie Johnson.
Yeah.
San Diego, I couldn't help but to kind of root for her in some aspects. But they did a phenomenal job. Anna Reed was fantastic in the goal, and Again, similar to in terms of momentum and dealing with the momentum. Obviously SC had that lead, but you kind of felt like once UCLA got a lead there, I think in the third, was it? That they might run away with it, but just again the resolve and the composure and the togetherness and unity by that USC team was impressive.
Yeah, each semifinal had these moments, right? Cal, that 5-goal third quarter, and then to your point, UCLA climbs out of a hole. I think it was 3 unanswered at one point to go up 1, only to then have USC kind of come back and return the favor. So it sets the table for tonight at 6, USC Cal. Oddly enough, something new in the NCAA championship. They've never met in a final. So USC and Cal and women's water polo have never played for a championship. USC's done the job against the Bears during the regular season. What do you look for in this matchup tonight?
I think I don't know. I mean, honestly, I think even going into this tournament, the one exciting thing in the beginning, I think everyone kind of felt like you couldn't really predict what was going to happen, because there seemed to be, even though Cal hadn't gotten over the hump against those best, they played some tight games, and I think everyone went into this tournament feeling like there was a lot of parity and anything could happen. So going into this game, I don't know. It would be interesting for me, Cal coming off that victory. Obviously, I'm sure they spent a ton of time preparing for Stanford. They had to get through Hawaii first, but they put probably a lot of time and effort into putting the game plan together for Stanford, and you could tell how prepared they were. In dealing with that emotion, I'm very curious to see how they respond. Not easy to do. In some ways that was their championship, or could be their Super Bowl. So being able to rebound and come back the next day. Both teams are incredibly deep. They don't, again, there's some superstars, but they don't necessarily rely on one person. They rely on an entire team. And I think when you see a game like that, that's what makes it also unpredictable, because it could be, yesterday, Abby McGee, for example, scores 3 or 4 goals. Again, Maggie Johnson, who I mentioned before, scored 3 goals. Those aren't necessarily the superstar names. So it could be anything. I think that the team that obviously gets off to a good start probably is going to have an advantage, but I would suspect this game to go down all the way to the wire.
We highlighted your previous experience as a college coach. You had a great run at UCLA, at one point winning 5 in a row. I'm curious to kind of think back on a championship day for you from the coach's perspective. And I don't know how many times you had to play at 6 p.m. I'm guessing the games were maybe earlier when you had to play them, so a longer day to get to the final. But what does, from a coach's perspective, what does championship day look like? How are you getting ready for the game?
Meditation. Seriously, a little bit of it. I think it's... Obviously, you have a training. I'm sure they're headed over to the pool probably right about now. Maybe going through some last-minute plays and things just to make sure people are staying sharp. But at this point, the hay's in the barn. So it's just some reminders from a coaching standpoint. You're probably still watching film. You see a team for a whole year, so you have a good sense. But then sometimes teams will throw some wrinkles at the very end, and I'm sure both coaches went back and were looking at some of the film from even yesterday to see if there were any new wrinkles that any team threw out there that they need to be prepared for. But then I think it's just about trying to get the team in the right place from a mental standpoint, and in order to do that, you got to get in the right place mentally as a coach. So whatever that may be, everyone's a little bit different. I was joking with Casey Moon yesterday as he was walking off the deck, and I think I said something like, you're start preparing. Good luck. Enjoy getting the preparation. And he's like, preparation never ends. You know that, Adam. I'm like, yeah, of course. It's like you're just so used to this. So I'm sure with a 6 p.m. game, it's a lot of time to be thinking about this. And that's going to be interesting, kind of seeing how they just deal with the nerves. But I'm so excited for this game. I think it's going to be a fantastic one.
I love the idea that there's a wrinkle or something that maybe you can plug in this final game that nobody has seen yet. Can you think back? And the other thing, too, I think for other sports fans, we love the idea of like March Madness or the postseason. In those tourneys, not always, but often, an early round matchup, even a championship, you may never have played the team that season. It might be the first time you're playing them because it's just a bigger competition. Here, almost always, the championship is meeting number 3 or 4. You've just seen the team over and over again. So to the wrinkle question, is there a memory, you think back to those UCLA days, is there something you held back and you busted out in the final that they had, there's no chance they had seen it, and how did it work?
Yes, of course. I think vividly, I remember back in the 2006 NCAA championship, we were playing USC over at UC Davis, and they had tied up the score. I forget exactly what the score was, but it was a tie game. They scored with about, I think, 10, 15 seconds left, and we had a specific play that we hadn't brought out yet. It was actually a play that was one of our former players, an Australian Olympian, Kaleigh Gilchrist, had taught me back from when she used in Australia, and it's a bit of a trick play where you draw a foul and you go underwater, leave the ball sitting there. It's a bit of an illegal play. Luckily, the referees didn't turn the ball over. I'm sure all the SC fans are going to go back and look at it and say it was an asterisk championship, but Courtney Mathewson scored the game winner with, I think, 1 second left. So it was a play that we had kind of held on to, that we knew could be effective based on the defense that we had seen, and obviously to see it all come to fruition and to win a national championship on that play in the last second against your arch rival was something pretty special.
We hit on this 25-year anniversary. I know you've talked about this a few times now in the last couple of weeks, but there's a lot of story building into this final. 25 years, I think the parallel for Corley Simmons, we just talked about her scoring the game-winning goal. Again, whoever wins, right? But it would be an interesting story to have that game-winning goal, and 25 years later, be the first woman to ever win an NCAA Women's Water Polo Championship as a coach. As you think big picture, the growth of the game and 25 years of college water polo on the women's side of the NCAA level, what stands out to you in this journey over the last 2+ decades?
I think the thing that stands out is always just the people involved, and I think, in Coralie's situation, who knows what's going to happen tonight. She's done a phenomenal job, whatever happens, win or lose. She's done a phenomenal job with that team from the beginning. But I think on a personal side, I just always enjoy seeing the legends of the game, like Coralie Simmons, like a Brenda Villa who's on that Stanford bench, seeing them be in the fold. Ryan Neuschel, who's a current player, was coaching at UCLA, seeing them give back to the sport and to continue to push the sport forward, and seeing the legends of the game still being involved and making a huge impact has been I think heartwarming, and we just need more people like that to continue to give back and keep pushing the sport forward.
Now, we can't let you go without talking some Team USA here. Quick turnaround for your group. Adam and the women's national team, they are on an airplane tomorrow, late morning, to go to Europe for World Cup Division I play that starts this Friday, and it's critical. It's a qualifier for the World Cup final, which is in Australia in July. You have the task of taking a bunch of people that were just at each other's throats for the last 3 days, going for a title, and now everyone's got to put on the USA gear and come together as one. That happens to you every year. This is maybe your fastest turnaround to make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's not something that I organized. World Aquatics sets the date on a certain time. We need to be there because we need to try to qualify for World Cup this summer, which is our main event, and it will be unique, but it's not something that they're not prepared for. They've known about this for not a year, but maybe 5-6 months, and we've spoken about it as a team. A few months back, just about being able to compete their butts off, and that's really the cool thing about this whole process for me as the national team coach, is to watch them go at each other, and even see it get heated, and see the frustrations and see the emotions, the ups and the downs, and really try to push each other and deeply want their team to have success, but then knowing that this team is also so mature, and they have a great fondness and love for one another, that they're going to have the maturity, I hope, to be on that flight tomorrow morning. It's not going to be, it probably won't be pretty tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock at LAX, but it's a part of the deal, and they're going to have to learn to just kind of let it go and come together as one, so we can try to do our best to qualify it for the World Cup.
That's a part of this bigger road to LA 28. But so often when we get to a championship Sunday like this, you hear a lot of conversation around team culture and how a team came together and how they built as one. You don't always have the luxury of months and months of training and people spending time on campus together to like create that bond. How do you microwave chemistry in these short-term situations when you need to?
I think that's a great question. I think the worst thing you can do is try to overdo it. It's got to happen somewhat organically. You know, it's going to take a little bit of time. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not like we're going to come together tomorrow at the airport and have a kumbaya and hold hands. And you know, it's something that takes some time. And to be quite frank, you know, as close as they are now, we know that the majority of our bond as a team is not that this isn't an important time. Obviously, every time that we get to spend it together is extremely important, but we know that last 13, 14 months leading up to the games is really the time in which we're going to probably create some cohesiveness. But it's definitely a challenge. I mean, it's the one of the things that I miss a little bit about the college game is that, you know, you're around each other. It's so much easier in the college world. You know, you're not only going to practice, but if you're at, you know, USC, for example, you're going to practice, you're walking around campus, everyone's wearing the USC sweatshirt, right, or t-shirt. You're going to the football game, you see each other at study hall, you see each other in the dining hall. It's a bit easier to kind of create that bond. So there's some challenges to create that type of culture and that environment on the national team. But it's also the thing that I love, is I love this idea. Part of the reason why I took this job 16 years ago is take the best of the best, so many different personalities, and let's try to come together and be one, embrace that challenge, and I trust that you know, they'll continue to be a big part in creating that connection and that culture moving forward.
And it's 2026, but LA 28 coming up quick. I think someone in this bar restaurant has probably already tried to get a ticket or is in a ticket lottery for LA 28, and they're waiting for their drop number 2 to come along or waiting for their email to be called. You probably get asked a lot. Hey, coach, hey, LA, well, tickets for starters. Hey, you have a good parking spot near the pool, but it's coming up quick. Just kind of give us a sense of where you and the team are at in the process to build towards LA 28. And ultimately, I think we talk about this often, but this road to an Olympics is lots of little stops, right? Like to figure out your rosters. Everyone is trying to make the next team, but there's like 15 teams to make before the Olympic team gets decided. So just give us a sense of where you're at in your process with you and the staff.
Yeah, I mean, a disclaimer first is please don't reach out to me for tickets. I've already gotten, I swear, probably about 50 different text messages about tickets. It'll all work out. But I think where we are, last year for us was like an exploration phase a little bit of just kind of exploring, getting a sense of who we were and who we want to be a part of that process moving forward. We've narrowed down the roster just a bit. I think after this summer, for us, you know, one of the big goals for us outside of the results and creating the culture we want is like we need to identify the top 20 to 21 athletes that are going to be a part of our full-time training roster. So when we start full-time training, residential training in May of 2027, we know the group in which the group of 20, 21 athletes that we're going to work with to try to narrow down to ultimately 13. But for us, it's like you said earlier, we don't spend a ton of time together. So understanding that every time that we get to spend together is valuable. We're still trying to build the systems and the tactics in which we want to play with. There's a lot of experimenting going on with lineups, with personnel, even position. You know, people that maybe centers could be used as defenders or attackers that could be used as defenders. So we're still getting a feel for one another and you know, experimenting with a lot of things, and hopefully we'll learn a lot more about ourselves this summer.
Good stuff. Well, Coach, good luck, safe travels tomorrow, and good luck this week in the Netherlands.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks.
All right, Coach Adam Krikorian joining us here on the Counterattack. Thank you, Coach, for coming by. We're talking ahead of the NCAA Championship final tonight. Cal taking on USC. I think we have a few Cal fans here, right? All right, the Bears. Any Trojan fans? We got the one guy like, Trojans! All right. Well, we're continuing on with our interviews here. Thanks so much to Kaleigh Gilchrist, two-time Olympic gold medalist, for being here. KG, first things first, we're going to call the game tonight on ESPNU. How excited are you for your national television broadcasting debut?
I'm excited. I mean, when I'm with Mescal, he makes it easy, so make sure you tune in. If you're not going to be at the game, it's going to be electric. I can be biased on this show, but as soon as I walk on the pool deck, I can't. So I have to shout out SC, fight on. Hope you guys get the job done.
Uh-oh, you're about to get booed from back here. Yeah, the boos are raining in from the Cal faithful. You did go to SC. We will talk about your national championship in 2013 a little bit later on. But first, let's kind of break down the game. We were on the call yesterday on NCAA.com for the semifinals, reflecting back on first Stanford, Cal, and then UCLA, USC. What jumped out at you when you think back first on the effort that Cal put forward?
Yeah, I mean, that was a really exciting game to watch. Like Adam said, probably most people would think Stanford was going to be in there. Obviously, Cal is a great squad. So they came out and they played as a team, and you saw that early on with all the movement, drawing ejections, quick aggressive shots, and I think we're going to see a lot of that today as well.
And then looking towards USC, UCLA, another back and forth game, right? UCLA has a moment where they take advantage, and then USC is able to come back. What'd you like about what the Trojans did there, especially in that fourth quarter?
Yeah, I don't know if I like the Trojans' fourth quarter that much. They kept it close, and I think if you want to win the championship, there's going to be some game situations that you need to be aware of, and I think that's what they lacked, and that's what they made the game so close. So I know Casey's talking to the girls, button some things up, and hopefully, you know, these games are always one game apart or one goal apart, so they'll have to nail down those game situations, and you know, against a very good Cal team.
Now, you took part in a pretty epic NCAA championship way back in 2013 at Harvard. Went to OT, I think golden goal, right? Annie Esparr gets the game winner over Stanford. Take me back to that day, not the game just yet, but we talked to Adam Krikorian about, well, from a coaching standpoint, what are you thinking about on championship day? From a player standpoint, and you've played in so many big games since, but what do you remember about getting ready for an NCAA final? What were you doing during the day? What does that day look like for a player?
Yeah, you try to keep it somewhat similar, but it's hard not to get overly excited when you're playing in a big match. So you go through your same routine, but there's always extra nerves and extra energy leading into the game. And you try to keep it cool, but you never are that cool. But as soon as you hit the water, it's game time. And usually you see in these championship matches, maybe the first quarter is not the prettiest of water polo, but once the girls settle down and once the team settle down, you'll see some really, really great water polo.
You always hear athletes talk about routines or superstitions. Was there anything over your career that you developed from USC onto your time with Team USA where you're like, I gotta do this before a big game, or this is just what I do to get ready for a big game?
I had no superstitions. I listened to music early on, and then I was like, this isn't really doing it for me. So I was the one on the bus that had no headphones on, and I was just kind of cruising, trying to stay as level-headed as I could.
Just staring out the window very quietly as everyone has their big headphones on. Where does your mind go in that place? Like, how do you try to stay calm or stay level-headed?
I think I go over the game plan a handful of times in my head and how I want to execute, a little bit of visualization, but I knew when I became obsessed with that, it would almost overtake the preparation. So just knowing that the work has been done and it's just time to execute.
Now, between that NCAA final or many Olympic Games, World Championships, you played in these super high-stakes games. You just mentioned that there's going to be nerves, so maybe it's a little sloppy Joe there at the start, right in that first quarter. What do you remember about the big games? How did your teams settle down and get into the flow of the game?
It's just getting back to the basics. I think that's when we had the most success, especially in those big games. No one trying to be a hero. It's the team wins. So just really executing on what you've trained for, 5-on-6 defense, and then usually the offense takes care of itself.
And aside from those jitters, those nerves, and obviously a specific game plan, is there a tone you were trying to set? We were talking about intimidation yesterday in the broadcast, right? And there was a time, if people don't realize, when Kaleigh was playing with Team USA, there was a 69-game winning streak. There was just portions of full years where the team didn't lose, where I think, from my perspective, you had intimidated the opponent before even the ball was dropped. The 2016 Olympics will go down as one of the most just thorough handling of the field. I think Team USA was at 44 seconds maybe is the only, all told, 44 seconds the entire tournament is all the Team USA trailed. How do you use that confidence and that intimidation to your benefit?
Well, I don't know how many opponents were nervous because of me. I think it was my teammates. You know, when you have Melissa Seidemann, Maggie Steffens, Rachel Fatal, Ashley Johnson, Maddie Muslim, I mean, the list goes on and on. When you're rolling with that group, I just look around and like, yeah, they're not worried about me. I can get away with whatever I want. You know, they're worried about the best players in the world. So that made it easy, and I think everyone just kind of gelled with each other, and we were able to ride with each other's confidence that led to the entire team intimidation.
How did the experience at USC, we're talking here on a big day for college water polo, how did your college water polo experience set the table for everything else you did? Because, and you've been the first to admit this, right? And you kind of are pretty self-deprecating, I think, about where you were in the scouting report. But coming out of college, I think if we went back to 2013 or 14, if someone said, Kaleigh Gilchrist will go on to be a three-time Olympian, two-time Olympic gold medalist, people might have said, well, I don't see the stats, or I haven't, I'm not sure about that. So something happened there, though, that allowed you to take that next step. What was it for you?
I think at USC, I came in surfer, lackadaisical, and my coach at SC really taught the importance of commitment. And I think that's the biggest thing I learned in the 4 years that rolled over to the national team. Obviously, I love sports, and one of my greatest strengths was my vision and understanding the game, and I just continue to develop that at USC. They're very into every little detail, and that rolled over as well. And then someone like Adam giving me a chance and seeing that there was more to my game than just goal scoring and blocks and assists and what most people see from a good player.
We had Alex Bowen on earlier. He talked about his San Diego chop. Do you have a celebration? How did you celebrate after a goal?
I never really did. It was almost like frowned upon in a way at USC. Like, it wasn't until the very end in your championship moment when we started throwing some fist pumps and stuff. But most of the season, you wouldn't see much from us. And then even in the national team, playing these Olympic level games, there wasn't much until you made it to the Olympics. And then for whatever reason, we just let it all out. And those were some of the most exciting games that we had, when you saw the emotion from the teammates and you saw the fist pumps and the splashing of the water and the screaming. And it was like we almost held this up and bottled it up for 4 years to just bring it out in the Olympics.
Outside of a celebration, when I think of Bowen, I think of that chop. When I think of you playing so often, I think of a great no-look pass. There are some fantastic photos of you looking this way and the ball going that way. Where did your development of being able to kind of fool the defense come from?
I'm not quite sure. Probably even at Newport Harbor, just understanding. I was fortunate to be coached by Coach Bill Barnett, who really was a pioneer of the sport, a legend of the sport, and just taught more than just shooting techniques. It was a lot about the overall game, and then that led, like I said, to the USC and then to the national team. And also, when I was younger, I just played a bunch of sports, and I was obsessed with sports. Basketball was, my favorite. I watched the Lakers for years and years, and I think you see a lot of cool no-look passes there, and I just wanted to implement it, and I think it just became a part of my game where I didn't even know I was doing it, and I got a lot of fun, or got made fun of often on the national team for no-look passes that were not necessary at all, but it was just habit.
Just dealing in a no-look, like
the wrong way.
A 2 on nobody for nothing. Yeah, I love that. You don't get to all these games, an NCAA final, Olympic finals, World Championships, without some pressure-packed moments. Very likely today we'll have a pressure-packed moment. We saw them yesterday. How do you handle when, as much as you've trained for this and as drilled as you are, you're like, I'm maybe freaking out a little bit. This is really important. How do you handle those moments? How can the players today handle those moments?
Yeah, as ironic as it is, you can't really think too much. So the more you can quiet your mind and quiet your brain, usually you just let your body go and it knows what it's supposed to do because it's been training for so many years. So I would just give advice to the girls to just stick with what they know and what they've trained for, and the moments will come.
We talked a bit about your Team USA journey, all that success. go back to Rio. The team had broken through, right? The history a little bit for the Team USA women. We talked about it with our trivia question. They had never won gold until 2012, so that group finally breaks through. To go back to back is a whole other thing, and then to go back to back to back, right, is another special level. What stands out about Rio first, and just being able to reach the top of the podium the first time for you?
Yeah, Rio was an all-time experience. People usually ask what my favorite memory was, and it was that gold medal game in Rio. And I think for us, you have the target on your back. You know, they won in 2012, but this was a whole new team. We had only 4 returners, 4 returners, 9 newbies from the Rio squad. Is that right? 3. Anyways, I'm looking over at Coach Krikorian to fact check me. But anyways, it was a very young squad. So to be able to do it with a young squad, and it was all of our first time, was something very, very special. And we leaned on those vets that I can't really remember right now a lot, and they were great leaders. So we followed their lead. We grew up a lot in that quad. We learned about professionalism, and a lot of people probably counted us out that 2013 World Championships, the team didn't do as well as they wanted to, and from that moment on, it was work, and we proved ourselves in 2016, and then to be on top of the podium with these women that you've grown to become family with is just really special, and then to have your family in the stands as well and give them the hugs, it was a moment I'll never forget.
Yeah, some of the best photos from Rio, I think, are you reaching into the stands and hugging family members, and everyone just kind of so excited as that one wraps. And then 4 years later, really 5, you have this wildly different experience. There's no one to reach over the stands and hug because it's an empty arena in Tokyo, and it's just you and your teammates. And one of the coolest experiences about that, and I'm curious for your take, after the Olympics ends, the final game, as KG referenced, right, you have a moment to like reach in and maybe hug a mom or dad, but then you're ushered into this whole other thing where you've got to go do interviews, and you've got to put different clothes on, you've got to get ready to do your medals, and then the train just keeps rolling. There's not time to hang out. Tokyo was unique. For an hour after this game ends, there's no one there. The team is just sitting on the podium, taking selfies and FaceTiming family and friends. What, in a weird way, like that'll never happen again, hopefully, knock on wood, but like, what was special about that moment, even though maybe it wasn't what you envisioned when you signed up for the Tokyo Games?
Right, I think Tokyo obviously was very unique, and I think even just prefacing the entire quad was unique. There was a lot of personal adversity, there was a lot of team adversity. To finally make it to Tokyo when a year before we didn't even know it was going to happen was a win in itself. And then to go and beat Spain in the finals, who's a longtime rival of ours, and have that time like you mentioned, it really allowed us to soak it in as a team. Usually we'd be rushed and going to hang out with family and friends, that we wouldn't have that one last moment together as a team, because really the next day everyone's off doing something different, flying somewhere else. We got motorcycles over here. And I think that was just a really special moment. We eventually made it back to the village and kind of just hung out as a unit one last time, and we were able to applaud everyone's success.
I think, if I recall, maybe a bottle of wine made its way onto the podium. I don't know, someone brought something in. Classic moments there. We talked to Bowen, a relatively recent new dad. You are a much newer new mom. Anything that you take from sport, from training, that is useful in this motherhood journey?
I think just having a good teammate. My husband Tom's here. He's great. He changes the diapers. I feed her. He sleeps through the night. I don't. But it is really important to have a community and a teammate. Obviously him, but our families have showed up huge. You know, my friends, that have had children are here showing up, and even those that haven't had children yet. So the idea of a community, a team, and being able to lean on one another during tough times and celebrate the good times is important.
One of the fun things you've done, I think, even during your pregnancy journey and now, is put together fun TikTok videos, kind of like a little self-deprecating. I like the wildness that it is to kind of take on becoming a parent. How does that kind of provide a little levity when there are some long nights and long days?
Yeah, you have to be able to laugh at yourself through this journey, and I think there's so many women that have gone through motherhood that can relate to some of the stuff that I'm posting, and pregnancy-wise, and especially sometimes, an athlete that goes into motherhood. It's a very challenging experience. You've been training so hard to keep your body a certain way, and you want to go and succeed, and this is a time where it really teaches you to slow down, and you're not first anymore. You got to be as selfless as can be, because your daughter, your son is the number one priority. So we like to have fun. We like to make fun of ourselves. I love to make fun of my husband, but the reality is it's just a really exciting adventure, and it's wild and it's crazy, but I would never change it.
Before you go, one last thing to talk about, and don't forget, we'll have the game tonight, so we're looking forward to that, Cal and USC. You've launched a new podcast recently, and that's keeping you engaged and telling stories. And just tell us a bit about that, the name, who you're working with, and how that's going.
Yeah, thanks for the shout out, Greg. Of course. I was golfing with my good friend Lakey Peterson. I grew up surfing with her. She's on the championship tour. She just won yesterday the Margaret Pro, so shout out to Lake. She's second in the world right now. But we were golfing with our husbands, and we were on the 18th green, and she just looks at me like, Kaleigh, we should start a podcast. And I'm thinking in my head, dude, Lakey, you travel the world. We're not going to start a podcast. But of course, I was like, yeah, sounds great. She followed up with a text being like, no, I think we really should start a podcast. So we bought all the equipment on Amazon that night, started recording the next week, and we're like, we'll see where this goes. And I think we've dropped 15 episodes. It's super fun. Reconnecting with her, but we're interviewing like-minded people, whether they're athletes. I mean, my sister made an appearance. We talk about surfing, we talk about water polo, about life, about motherhood. So we're on all the normal streaming systems. So just check us out: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the sure thing.
What's one conversation you've had in that kind of was eye-opening for you or interesting, where you're like, I wouldn't have learned this or talked about this if I wasn't doing this podcast?
Well, I got to talk to 2 Olympians and 2 world champions surfers, Caroline Marks and Molly Picklum, and that was obviously so special. And to be able to reconnect with surfing for me has been such a joy. Obviously, it's such a huge part of my life, but when water polo came, I had to put it to the back burner, so I get to reconnect with the entire surf community. So those conversations were really exciting.
We're actually looking right at the Pacific Ocean. What's the report? Anything good out here?
We look like we have some west winds, 12 knots, swell, south swell, 2 feet maybe, junky, not worth it.
Junky means bad. Okay, Kaleigh Gilchrist, thanks for the time, and we'll see you tonight on the U. Thank you.
Thank you.